Hello, good evening, and welcome back. I would like to start this with a brief correction or apology to my previous video with the two lesbians who were attacked in Camden. As we see here from the Metro, fifth teenager, 16, arrested over homophobic bus attack. So my apologies to Melania Gaymanat and her girlfriend Chris for casting aspersions to saying that it could be a hoax. It did carry the hallmarks of the hoax, but now that we have a fifth arrest, seeing as these have come in very quickly, and the CCTV footage, then fair enough, this does seem to be a true story, so my apologies to you. If there is anybody who wishes to support these ladies, then there is a crowdfunding site, which I will put a link to in the description, and I have added that to my previous video as well. On a side note, we have the Peterborough by-elections, which took place after the Labour lady had to step down due to the problem she was facing, and this should have been taken by the Brexit Party, given that this was then a clean and fair election to show how well these parties would fare, considering how much of a stronghold it is for Brexit. 60% leave in Peterborough, but Labour still won out, only very slightly, and given that there was a controversy with them, you would have thought that they would have done worse, but by percentage change, we have seen that they have taken a substantial hit, given they lost 17%, Conservatives as well lost 25%, and the Brexit Party is, there's 2% in it, and if it wasn't for the Conservatives, then surely the Brexit Party would have won. And even if they didn't win this time, then it's definitely a warning shot or a shot across the bow to the Westminster elites, the bubble, to say, hey, we're coming for you, so shape up or get out. But maybe if the Brexit Party actually had a proper manifesto, they would have done better. So to the main story, to say Michael Gove, cocaine mistake, a deep regret. He is one of few of the Tory hopefuls for leadership who have had admitted to drug use, and we have a list here from the Express saying David Cameron, okay, so one of the previous actual prime ministers with cannabis, he said when he was 15. Boris Johnson, cocaine, although that could be a misnomer, we'll look at that later. Rory Stewart, opium, Jeremy Hunt, cannabis, and Michael Gove, also cocaine. So Michael Gove, cocaine mistake, a deep regret from the BBC. Tory leadership candidate Michael Gove has said he deeply regrets taking cocaine more than 20 years ago. Told Daily Mail he had taken the drug at several social events while working as a journalist. And the main thing here, to preface before we get on with it, is that I'm very libertarian with drug policies in terms of do what you want, don't hurt anybody else. Your right to wave your hand in the air ends where it meets my face, essentially. So I understand that the argument is, well, these kind of psychoactive, mind-altering substances then cause people to give harm to other people, especially things like spice. But I don't think that the issues that some people face taking these drugs should affect the majority of people who don't have those issues. Alcohol is a good example of that it causes some people to become much more violent, but some people to just fall asleep. And of course then there's a bigger market, now that it's legalised, of some people who want Thunderbird wine and just to get drunk and stomach vodka and do shots for the sake of it because they're trying to get drunk, whereas there are others who don't wish to get drunk but just enjoy the taste of wine or like a £500 bottle of scotch, for example. So with someone like Michael Gove, who is still pushing for the drug laws to imprison people when caught and not giving them a second chance, to then say, well, I made a mistake and people should be able to move on with it because I believe in a second chance society, then that's the hypocrisy that I find abhorrent. Not to say that nobody's a hypocrite, but still, when is this blatant, then I think we have an issue. And it's one rule for thee, another for me. That's what I take an issue with. It's the classism and elitism, isn't it? The Environment Secretary said he believed the mistake should not be held against him in his bid to become Prime Minister, saying he had a different life before running for politics. Served as Justice Secretary from 2015-2016. How interesting. Very fitting, isn't it? Then they mention International Development Secretary Rory Stewart, another standing against him, has already apologised for smoking opium, another Class A drug. You've got poppies, opium, then heroin, and then morphine, which is given to pregnant women. Yes, the more refined it is, the worse it is. It's like sugar. Look into the bleaching processes going on in that, and then think if you really want to ingest it. When you see shiny food, is that really edible? So, in fact, it's some of those things that you have to be told is food in order for you to accept that it is food, because it just doesn't look like food, in which case, are you sure you want to eat it? Anyway, Boris Johnson was the favourite to succeed as a Conservative leader. Asked about claims he had taken cocaine at university in 2008, he replied saying that was when I was 19. In an appearance on Have a God News for You in 2005, he admitted being given the drug but suggested he had not actually taken it, saying, and I can't do a Boris Johnson impression, I'm sorry. I think I was once given cocaine, but I sneezed and so it did not go up my nose. In fact, I may have been doing icing sugar. So he doesn't even know if it was the drug or not. But it was one of those things that you say when you think you're all friends, but then later used against you. And probably trying to seem more hip, like Kamala Harris in the US saying, oh yes, I smoke marijuana, and I did inhale. It's like, what were you listening to? Oh, Tupac. Well, 2 years before the album came out. Stop. And Jeremy Hunt, of course the NHS problems there, told the Times he had drunk a cannabis lassie while backpacking through India. But again, he took plausible deniability, saying, well, it might have been, but I'm not sure. Because I don't do these things very often, so I can't know. Gove told the Mail, I took drugs on several occasions at social events more than 20 years ago. At the time, I was a young journalist. It was a mistake. I look back and think I wish I hadn't done that. But the more important thing here is to say that he believes in a second chance society, which I will find. He says, I've seen the damage drugs can do to others, and that is why I deeply regret the decisions I took, he added. Which is fine, but if you are imprisoning people just on possession straight away, then you're not allowing those people to have another chance. And if you send them to prison, then they're going to then get in with gangs, considering that you need a gang for protection. Otherwise you will be attacked, sexually assaulted and raped. Perhaps the rape epidemic in prison is terrible, and putting young offenders with older offenders therefore perpetuates that. And you might say, oh, well, you're not going to learn anything about doing crime when you're in prison because you're only then talking with the other crime members who have been caught. Therefore, they're not the good ones. You need to talk to them out of prison because they're the ones who haven't been caught. And sure, but seeing as you need them for protection, then you're still going to get into that culture and way of life, and you'll be more likely to do those things, especially considering these criminals most likely come from single mother households, and they don't have a role model and somebody who they respect and want the respect of, in which case once they find that community, this is belonging, and the army used that, is the same as used in cults, then they're going to think, well, at least I get recognition and appreciation there, so I'm going to continue to do it. But here we go, analysis by Peter Fool, so the editorial. Michael Gove, widespread support among Conservative MPs, but the 120,000 or so members are largely older people, and while it might not be the essential issue in this leadership contest, they may take a dimmer view of drug taking than younger generations. It's notable that other candidates also seem to be taking the honesty is the best policy approach, which is basically just saying that they're concerned that other people are going to attack them before they can out themselves, and that politics, especially in these leadership races, it's just meant to drag other people down. It's the crab in the bucket thing, where the guy goes for the fisherman, they get a load of crabs, put them in a bucket, and the guy then sees one of the crabs trying to leave the bucket, and he says to the fisherman, hey, you got to put a lid on that bucket quick, otherwise the crabs are going to escape. And the fisherman just calmly turns and goes, just wait. So the guy does, looks at the crab, getting near the top of the bucket, and thinks, what the hell is this guy doing? And then the other crabs try to, and do successfully, then drag him down. He goes, oh, okay. And another crab tries, and he also gets dragged down. You might say they're trying to pull themselves up, but nonetheless, they're still pulling that crab down. And that seems to be what these people are doing. It isn't thinking of, oh, I'm going to do right by myself, be proud of myself, and, I'm not going to have any regrets because I'm going to do what gives me pride in the long run, which is far more beneficial than looking for happiness, because happiness is fleeting, but satisfaction is everlasting. And that's why I think you should do things that you think will make you proud instead of happy. And that, or in other words, then you'll be happy to have done instead of happy doing. It's that long-term reward instead of immediate dopaminergic reaction. But yes, this is just saying, oh, well, I think the electorates are going to vote for, or the constituents are going to vote for the lesser of the evils instead of somebody that they actually think represents them and wants to represent them. Maybe if they took that approach, they'd get a higher turnout because people would actually care. Wouldn't that be good? Like the recent MEP elections getting 35% turnout, so well, a third of people care. Do you think you're doing something wrong then? Especially if you want a bigger government. Surely you've got to realize people don't want that if they're not voting at all. So if people took an interest in politics, then maybe you'd have a point that a bigger government could be better, but people don't. So leave them alone. Same with drug policy. Leave people alone. People don't want to get stabbed, and if they're not hurting anybody by taking drugs, then leave them alone and deal with the people getting stabbed. But it's then one of those things of, if you're nice, you're going to get taken advantage of, because the police don't want to be in danger and risk their lives. But if they can just stop a friendly gentleman who's smoking weed, then hey, they're doing their job because they make an arrest and they're not endangering their lives at all. But if they have to go down to, near where I live, it's Deansgate Locks in Manchester, and then have to face violent gangs and maybe have things thrown at them and maybe themselves are killed, then they're going to avoid that because that's actually dangerous. Because they're too evil, which is Machiavellian. It's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both. But here we have, speaking to BBC Radio 4's Today programme, Daily Mail assistant editor Summer Walters interviewed Michael Gove, so it's hearing through the grapevine now, it's second hand, said the confession was unlikely to affect support from MPs or party members in London, but could change further away from the capital. Because he said, in London, in Metroland, Toys and Leafy Putney won't think much about it, but out in places like Petersfield in Hampshire, where the membership decides, they take a more traditional view about these things and they may well feel it's a serious matter. He added, I think he should be praised for his candour. So it's like, well, don't try to please everybody, just be true to your own morals and see where that goes. Mr. Gove's fellow Tory leadership hopeful Dominic Raab, previously admitted smoking cannabis, told Today, I think Michael has set out that he made a mistake. It was a long time ago, people judge it as it is, but I do believe in a second chance society. And that's the quote from Dominic Raab, not from Michael Gove. It's like, well, yeah, cool. In which case, don't prosecute people for having drugs if they intend to use it and not distribute it. But again, if you can get in charge of drugs and legalise them, then you're not going to have such issues with cartels and it's not going to be such a violent business. Or you could say the same about tobacco, which is already legalised, and coffee, considering the most broken countries make the best coffee. Yeah. And then, of course, Cuban cigars. That's a classic. He added, I certainly don't feel it's barred him from this race in any way. And then it says Theresa May stepped down and they should have somebody to replace them at the end of July, essentially. So that's it for now. So please do like, share, subscribe, comment on this if you've got anything that I've mentioned that he's checking, as was mentioned in the previous video by Tony. Yeah. Benny? I'm not sure now. But by Tony, to mention that I had said something that I hadn't shown the quote for in the fact, and he did mention that to say, well, fair enough, if true. So I replied to give further context with that. So thank you very much for bringing that up, because I should not be allowed to get lazy or say things that I think are true but actually aren't. So that is very important, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. Please do continue to do that. Hold me to account. My intention is never to deceive, but only to enlighten. So thank you. That is a great help. This channel does have some slow growth, but it is growth nonetheless. So thank you to all the supporters, and I will see you next time. Have a good evening.